What is up, everybody? Welcome to Happy Hour Hoops, your one-stop shop for everything basketball all the time. And today is a very special day. It is the trade deadline 2023. Kyrie got traded the other day. We had a nice little pod about that. And I was thinking to myself, that's probably the biggest deal. We'll have some nice size deals. We thought the Raptors were going to make some moves. We thought there would be some nice, solid role players helping out contenders and everything else. And then at 1:30 in the morning, Kevin Durant got traded to the Phoenix Suns. So we got a lot to get into because all those trades pretty much did happen, and Kevin Durant got moved in one of the biggest trades legitimately in NBA history happening overnight. So Jake Micah here, as always, joined by Steve and our favorite guest here, Amari McPherson. Amari, I want to start with you here. What was your initial reaction, and what are you feeling now after sitting with it for not even 16 hours that Kevin Durant is a Phoenix Sun?
I'll tell you what, it was a surprise to wake up to, right? I mean, I wake up at 6 in the morning for work, happened at 1 o'clock. I'd had to do a double take. I'm like, make sure that, I'm looking at the right channel. But I think it's actually good for both teams. I mean, the Suns are kind of been floundering in the West right now. I think they're, fifth maybe? And I think Brooklyn could build, if they want to, around the picks and the players that they got back. So I think it's a win-win for both. But I definitely like what the Suns got. I think that will give them that boost that they need. Like I said, they've been kind of average right now to get over those teams in the West. The Grizzlies are struggling. We've seen the Pelicans kind of fall after the Zion injury. So I think that gives them that boost that they need to – I'm not saying that they're going to get back to the finals, but at least make a push, in the playoffs right now. Looking at a 4-5 matchup with Dallas. So I'm hoping that happens, because if it does, those NBA scriptwriters need an Emmy, because I will definitely watch every game, every minute. So I'm excited.
What about you, Stevie?
I mean, I think to Amari's point, I think Brooklyn got a pretty good return, but this is crazy. This is a wild deal, one I didn't expect. And we talked about this on Tuesday, Jake, just a couple days ago. I was like, I think it's going to be tough for the Nets to trade KD, just because I thought it'd be a quick turnaround.
We literally said at the end of the pod, we talked about it at the end of the pod, and we're both like, yeah, probably this summer. Like, it'll happen, but no way it happens now. Exactly.
I was like, there's no way. And I got to give the Brooklyn Nets credit for getting a pretty good package in return. They wanted Mikal Bridges. The Suns did not want to part with Mikal Bridges, and they made sure he was in that deal. Probably, put the pressure on Phoenix to get the deal done, saying this is the only chance you're probably going to get Kevin Durant. And not only that, too, but we talk about KD going to the Suns, which is a monster deal. You got CP3, you got Booker, you got KD, you got DeAndre Ayton. But getting a pretty quality scorer off the bench with TJ Warren in that deal too, just kind of thrown in there. It turns the Suns into a legitimate contender in the West now, where we said this was probably the last year where they were in that category, Jake, right? Where the window's closing quickly.
Not anymore.
And you either got to do something crazy or you got to completely rebuild. And what did the Suns do? They did something crazy, and they said, let's go get one of the best pure scorers in the NBA with Kevin Durant. Because I'll tell you right now, if Devin Booker's fully healthy, if you think you're out of your mind, if you think that team is going to get stopped offensively with Chris Paul dishing it to Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I mean, that is a terrifying offense to stop.
So yesterday, the Phoenix Suns' new owner walked into the building at 11 a.m. Mountain Time to start his first day as the owner, and by 11 p.m. Mountain Time, he had traded for Kevin Durant. I don't know if it's not him as the owner, I don't know if that deal gets done. I don't know if this happens. Like the confluence of events and timing that has to come for this to happen, and Kyrie, obviously, all that stuff is insane. For me, the Suns, I mean, the West, I still think I wasn't even thinking of them as title contenders without Durant. So now they're officially in that conversation. For me, though, I think they are off rip the favorite in the West, just because of, like you said, if Booker's healthy and Durant, if he is back to what he was before he was healthy or before he got hurt, they were on a 17-2 streak. And he was shooting, remember I sent you the one tweet that he was shooting like 79% from mid-range or something like that? It was something disgusting. And now he's on a team with the other two best mid-range players. Like, one of the best mid-range players in the history of basketball and one who is well on his way to get there. This team is going to be able to attack you from so many different ways. And what teams in the West can really stop anybody right now, too, like contenders? The Warriors are really the most interesting team defensively now at this point after the moves they made today and everything they kind of did. But other than that, the Nuggets and Suns, when those teams match up, track meet the whole time. Mavericks, you can throw them in that track meet situation too. And we're going to get into what the LA teams look like after this a little later, but I think they have to be in that conversation. The Kings, we know they like to run up and down the floor. Like all these teams, the Grizzlies, yes.
All these they're not home and Jared Jackson's getting 20 blocks a night. They're running up and down the court.
Everybody, all these, and the East is going to be the exact opposite. The top of the East now, the Nets gone. See you later. Cavs, as you and I, Amari, that was the best news of the thing, I think, for the Durant trade, is that the Cavs can slot right back into that 4 spot, hopefully stay ahead of the Heat and everybody else, and the Raptors, whatever the fuck the Raptors are trying to do here. But the Nets are not as much of a threat there as much. But those top 4 teams in the East, if it's Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, and Cleveland, it's going to be knock down, drag out like 90 to 87 games. And it's going to be a polar opposites, it feels like. But for the Suns, for me, if I'm looking at it, Booker and Durant on the court together is better than any duo, maybe not named Tatum and Brown, but I still think I might even pick those two over those guys. I'm picking those two over those guys. You could make
the argument for KD and Booker.
I mean, I'm the guy who's not on the
show today, Jake.
No.
He's not here today.
That's what I was going to say. I'm the guy who also told Dunny to trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant too, for this exact reason, to have just the 2 best players together on the court. Booker and Durant offensively, just I don't know what you do to stop those two. They could literally do whatever they want at all times.
Well, if you're ranking them, let's say they're fully healthy, right? In the playoffs, you're ranking them. Who would you want on your team? You got to go KD 1, probably Tatum 2, and then I think I'm going Booker 3, Jaylen Brown 4.
Yeah.
For the playoffs,
I think Tatum and Booker are close though, man, and that's no shame to Tatum. That's where people need to put Booker. I mean, people. I feel like the last year the narrative on Booker is just slowed down so much because of how they flamed out so poor, and they flamed out as bad as you can flame out. But man, like that guy in these moments, he's going to be there. He's going to be there the whole time. And now they have Durant. He's going to be there. He's going to meet every moment. Like in a playoff series going against those two in clutch time, it's just going to be such a challenge. What do you think, Amari? Like what do you think they are title wise, West wise, like just big picture now?
I mean, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around it because I think for me, just as a basketball fan, I'm just excited to see what they could do on the court because just like Steve was saying, you could literally do anything you want on the court. It's going to be buckets after buckets after buckets. So for me, like I said, they're making their case in the West right now, especially you said with the Warriors, they're kind of interesting right now, but the Warriors are obviously not at the team that we thought they would be, and they're terrible on the road as well. So I'm not saying I'm counting them out, but I'm definitely not looking at them with the same eye that I was the past couple of years. So I definitely think towards the end, you think Phoenix will be in the, at the end of it. And so I think Phoenix right now are the odds-on favorite for the West. I don't know what that means come June. I don't know who they'll be facing, but interesting point, like you said, with who you want in the playoffs, whether it be the 2 guys from Boston or KD and Booker. I mean, that's like the perfect matchup that I want to see in the summer right there. You're talking about the 4 best offensive players probably in the league right now. You could probably throw in Giannis too because he's pretty unstoppable, but for the sake of this conversation, take him out of it.
Yeah, for duos.
The 4 best guys, for the duos, take those 2 teams, take those 2 duos. I mean, it's just going to be trading buckets. It's not going to be that 90-87 game that Jake was talking about in the East. It's going to be all 130, 125 games, and we're going to love every second of it.
Yeah, it's definitely – I'm so excited now that we don't have to talk about the Brooklyn Nets for one thing. Let's just have – that's what this is a cheers that for Happy Hour Hoops. We do not have to talk about the Kyrie and KD Nets ever again.
I will be talking a little bit about the Brooklyn Nets. For
we will.
Thomas
that's okay.
If he keeps up his pace. That's all. That's the only exception right now.
This is a day of celebration, Steve. We can get to Cam Thomas too. He has been absolutely balling out. I mean, it's just been like absurd what's going on with Cam Thomas. But so I don't know if we have any more Durant thoughts here at least for the Suns. I think It's going to be really fun to see them. And maybe this is what Chris Paul just need. Like Chris Paul being the third guy now, maybe will be what maximizes him. And I mean, him setting the table for Booker and Durant is going to be so fun. Suns at Mavs, March 5th. Suns at Warriors, March 13th. Suns at Lakers, March 22nd. Just so you guys are aware, those were the 3 matchups I was looking for. So that's going to be a couple fun weeks in March. We haven't had a KD versus LeBron matchup since 2019, guys, in the regular season. It hasn't happened.
Seems it's crazy, so wild to me, right?
Yeah.
It's been that
long.
And
now they're division rivals. Like now we get to see them. I'm not even thinking this year, hopefully next year, like 5 times this. It's going to be awesome. But let's the Suns, I think we know where they're. Do you think they gave up too much? I mean, we didn't even talk about the return. There's the 4 first-round picks: Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Jay Crowder, who ended up getting rerouted right away to Milwaukee pretty quickly there. But it's basically just they traded their wings, and the picks I don't really care about, to be honest, because you're getting Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As long as Kevin Durant stays with the Suns, I think it's a fine deal for them. If this is a kind of just, a rental for the rest of the season and it kind of blows up in their face, they fade out like last year, which I don't think will happen. But then you can make the argument, the Suns kind of screwed themselves. I know they didn't want to give up Mikal Bridges. I know Mikal Bridges didn't want to leave Phoenix, so that was probably a tough piece for them to part ways with. And you know how I feel about Bridges, Jake. I call him one of the most perfect teammates to have, where he's just that guy who does everything right, plays great defense, he hits open shots, he can handle the ball, he can pass it a little bit. He's just a well-rounded, good basketball player. So that's kind of a tough piece to get rid of there. I mean, probably needed to be done to get KD. But we'll see. I mean, if KD stays on the Suns, and this is the classic, our window's closing quick. What are we going to do? We're going to do something wild to open it right back up again and see what we can do. And here's the thing. If they get a championship this year, and if KD wants to say they get a ship this year and KD leaves, and they just had KD for 5 months to get a ship, it was worth it. It was worth it, because the whole thing for the Phoenix Suns here is doing the classic, let's get a wild deal to get a superstar and just try to win now. They know Chris Paul's getting older. He's 37. Booker's dealing with health. We know the DeAndre Ayton situation hasn't worked out great. But this is like, you know what? Instead of trying to fix all their problems at once, they're like, let's just go get the superstar and see if adding Kevin Durant can really help us short term. So I can't say right now if they gave up too much, because if you ask me right now, would I give this package up for Kevin Durant? I'd say absolutely.
Every day.
If you told me the championship window was starting to close and we got one last shot at it, and you say, here's the package to get Kevin Durant, I go, all right, I'm doing that 100 times out of 100, because it's Kevin Durant.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think they gave up too much. The only thing for me is that obviously we don't know. Look, from being on the outside looking in, we don't know what it would have taken. And obviously, I mean, if I'm the Suns, I would have loved it, Mikal Bridges. I mean, imagine that lineup with him on the floor. But like I said, we don't know. And so to the point of the championship window, you mentioned Chris Paul. For me, I don't know what he's going to look like come playoff time. He's kind of been very below average for me. Obviously, we know he's getting older, and he has those, history of injuries. But for me, that still doesn't count them out when it comes to the finals. I just don't know how Chris Paul is going to be. But even so, KD, he still has, 3 years left on his contract. So even if it doesn't work out this year, you still got a little bit of time. Granted, we don't know what that point guard spot's going to be looking like. Plus, you keep your superstar happy in Devin Booker, who's only in his mid-20s. So you definitely extend that championship window as long as he's under contract. You have, I don't even know how many combined years they have together, but at least KD has 3 years left on his contract. Plus the youthfulness of Devin Booker, who could still give you 25 a night.
Yep. And KD apparently his preferred destination was the Suns. He left the Nets on good terms. They worked to where he wanted to go. So that seems good for him. And Windy gave a little bit of a nugget there that apparently Kyrie is eyeing the Suns in the summer. So just remember that.
Well, there's your Chris Paul replacement, I guess, huh?
Exactly.
there's a Chris Paul replacement.
It is.
Kyrie, KD, and Devin Booker in Phoenix. It sounds that's what Windy was sharpening up. And I'm sure that it's bumbling around there too, because
Kevin Durant and Kyrie tormenting LeBron for 6 months. 6, 7 months.
Well, look at you, Amari, because you are the king of segues today. Because let's go to the Los Angeles Lakers, who made the big splash last night. They traded Russell Westbrook. And we'll get all these deals up in a second here. But so the first trade was Russell Westbrook in a 3-team deal. The Lakers acquired D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt. The Minnesota Timberwolves acquired Mike Conley, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Great 2K player right there. 3 second-round picks. And Utah Jazz get Russell Westbrook, Juan Toscano Anderson, Damian Jones, and the 2027 first-round pick from the Lakers. So they keep their 2029 first-round pick. Didn't have to get rid of both in this trade. The Lakers also make deals here. I'm going to bring up our little doc here so we can get a visual on this. Also made a couple other deals. Mo Bamba. Steve's Mo Bamba is now a Laker for Pat Bev, who Pat Bev is not.
Mo Bamba is freed from the Magic. He's freed. Finally.
Did you see the picture? He was like already moved out. Like he took a picture of like a U-Haul and a mover. That guy was ready to go. He's like, LA.
They treated him
up immediately. Oh yeah, it's horrible. And
I'm happy for Mo. I hope he has a role. I'm happy for him. I really am. I think he's got super high potential. You know how much I love Mo Bamba, and to play with, arguably one of the greatest players of all time, to get him a lot of looks, I think it's going to help Mo Bamba. I really do.
Yeah, no, I think the Mo Bamba trade is underrated. I think everything that the Lakers did today and last night just made them more solid everywhere they really needed, like just some kind of depth, right? They've got playmaking now, then shooting in the guard. When you have Russell, Russell's been playing great the last month. Like a guy that wanted to get traded. Yeah. That's what he's been playing. Like the crazy video of him in his rookie year putting AD and LeBron in his all-time starting 5, and now he's going to be on the court with them. This is a guy that's going to be motivated to perform, and just the youth that they bring back there. Malik Beasley is a knockdown shooter who has tops. He does not need to play defense with the lineups they're going to be able to put out there, which is crazy to think, because with Rui, LeBron, AD, Bamba, Wenyen Gabriel, all these guys that they now have, like they have wings and they have size and guys that can kind of switch. And Vanderbilt too, who was out of the rotation basically. Another guy size can play the 4 and the 5. Like all of a sudden they have size, they have rim protection, they have some like length. Reeves and Christie like get knocked down to where they should be, like 8th and 9th men, but they're pretty good. 8, 9, 10 men on a team. Like this is not a team that, when you look at the roster, starting lineup, whoever they decide to start and everything, if they don't make the playoffs, I don't even think the play in. I think they should be a 6 seed. But if they don't make the play in and then make the playoffs, this is like mass point, because this roster today is, I think, much, much, much better than it was the other night when we were at LeBron break history or make history and everything else. Much better,
Jake. Much better, and a much better shooting lineup. You look at a lot of the guys they gave away.
Even Mo.
Westbrook struggles from the outside. Toscano Anderson struggles from the outside. Thomas Bryant, very inconsistent. Pat Bev, very inconsistent. And you add guys, Mo, you were just saying, what does Mo do great? He's a great shot blocker, interior defense, and he shoots the ball well from the outside. He's a great shooter. You add Mo Bamba there. D'Angelo Russell, a very good shooter, will help him. Malik Beasley, we just talked about. Just a pure scorer is what Malik Beasley is. I was joking when I texted my buddy this, but it feels like when you look at the Lakers, this is your typical 70-win 2K team. This is just a team that's just going to, like, the way they're built, it's going to go 70 wins. And I like it similar to with adding Rui, now adding Mo Bamba. It's a guy who's had so much potential. Everyone knows the name because he's got, the size. They got the physical ability. Mo Bamba with the wingspan, Rui's athleticism. And it just wasn't the right fit in Washington for Rui, in Orlando for Mo Bamba. Now you get a chance to play with two of the best players in the NBA, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and really see if maybe you can get to that potential that these guys had a few years ago. I think it's a great move there. You got D'Angelo Russell, who, like you said, Jake, probably was balling out to try to get a trade, and now gets to play in LA again with two of the best players that he wanted to always play with. And also, too, who was the one who was pissy about when LeBron broke the scoring record? It was AD, because he wants to win. These are moves to win now. They're trying to help LeBron, and they're trying to please AD. And I think these are moves. I give the Lakers one of the highest grades, I think, of any team at the deadline, because I really like what they did, how they shaped their team. And this is coming from a guy who loves Russell Westbrook, and I think just never really kind of worked out there. But I really do like the way they shaped up this roster. This roster is 100 times better than it was a few days ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I for the Lakers, I think they definitely won the trade. If you want to pick winners and losers, they definitely look a lot better, I think, today than they did the other day. For me, it's defensively. They got bigger with size, and they could stretch out the floor. And cause to me, their defense has been terrible, especially their transition defense. I think watching that Hornets game, they got a wide open layup off of a missed free throw. Like, how does that happen? Your defense is terrible. And granted, the Thunder are pretty excited offensively, but you should be beating teams like the Thunder when you have players like LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And they just did not look like they had it that night. Hopefully, down the stretch, they look a little bit better. They're 4.5 games out of the 6 seed right now, which may be asking a lot for the Lakers even, unfortunately. But I think that just goes to show that they're not completely out of it right now. As long as they don't even have to get hot. As long as they start winning some games, playing some defense, and obviously kind of get lucky with other teams losing, they could find themselves a 6 or 7 seed. Who knows? But this is a roster and a team that should at least make the play-in, probably should also make the playoffs, but for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. But I think this deal, and especially the Mo Bamba deal, will increase their defense and get them hopefully into that playoff spot that they should be in.
Yeah, you talk about defense too, Amari. I mean, one of the pieces that no one's ever going to talk about because it's not a household name, but it's going to help with so much with depth defense as well as Jared Vanderbilt. That is exactly what he is.
Jared Vanderbilt, think he's pretty underrated.
I do too.
When I saw his name come through that trade, he was one of the pieces where I was excited for the Lakers. Just watching him with the Timberwolves last year in the playoffs. He's not, like you said, a household name, but he kind of makes his mark. And he's a guy that I don't want to say if you know the game because I'm not like super smart, but if you just pay attention, even to teams like the Timberwolves, he's somebody that you notice. And I think he can definitely help the Lakers with what they need to get to.
Yeah, and they got lucky that he would even be involved in that because Walker Kessler is just so good, and they were just like, we're gonna play him, give him the minutes. It wasn't even what Vanderbilt was like not doing. It was just like we need to play the young guy who's balling out, and all of a sudden you get thrown into a trade like that just because the Jazz have too many guys. Like it's a great stroke of luck.
Yeah.
One of the other things too about this deal, I think you guys made a lot of great points, and especially defensively, what I'm thinking too, Amari, is we know AD loves playing at the 4. He would prefer to play at the 4. And now your starting lineup can be Russell, Beasley, LeBron at the 3, AD at the 4.
In there.
Mo Bamba or Jared Vanderbilt. One of those two can be your starting 5 and be the 5 all game long, and AD can be back to where he feels most comfortable. He played great in stretches at the center this year. He doesn't like it though. And if you can play him, and if he's going to be more effective at the 4 and more engaged, they clearly need that with whatever was going on the other night and everything. And even beyond that, they need him as engaged as possible to start, like you said, winning these games, stringing games together so they can put themselves maybe in the 6th position. But you look at the standings too, and it's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight here, bro. Let's look at this, and then we'll get into the Clippers too, because it's all the same conversation at this point with the West. When you look at the Western Conference, like this is what we're working with for the playoff teams. Basically, the Spurs and Rockets are tanking; they're out of it. The Jazz the Jazz, I would assume, are going to start trailing off a little bit. The Timberwolves a little bit, maybe the Blazers too. That was a weird couple moves today. I don't know. The Blazers are so fucking weird, dude, because they just make trades that like they end up in the same spot. It's like, okay, let's trade Josh Hart. We'll get this 1st round pick back in Reddish, who's not as good as Josh Hart. But then we'll trade for Tybal, and it's like, just keep Josh Hart. Like I feel like he does the good things that both those guys do. What are we doing here? I don't know. But just the landscape of it here, there is some room for them to get involved. But you would assume the Suns are going to be flying up the board there. I don't know if they can even get to the Grizzlies, but I think the Suns will be the 3 seed easily there. The Mavs feel like they're right in the same spot. The Kings right in the same spot. The Clippers, let's get into the Clippers here, Steve. How do you feel about what the Clippers did today? Some of the moves. They are, first of all, the biggest move is they're rumored to sign Russell Westbrook when and if he's bought out by the Jazz.
Which would be a great move for the Clippers. I feel like they played a little bit of musical chairs today, I guess. I mean, I know John Wall kind of wasn't really performing. He's out of there. They get Eric Gordon, who's a decent shooter, but Eric Gordon to me is just kind of an older Norman Powell, if that makes sense. Like he's just very similar. They got to repeat there. I really did like the addition of Bones Highland. I thought Bones Highland was a great addition. I think Bones Highland they got for a steal just for only 2 second-round picks from the Nuggets. I think that might have been.
What the heck's up with all the second-round picks today? We haven't even gotten into this crazy second-round pick
madness. It was second-round pick madness today. Everyone's doing my rebuild strategy where you accumulate the low-round picks and then you just try to trade up with just
Is this 2K? Are we actually good GMs?
Like we're at 2K, dude.
It's ridiculous.
No, but I look at some of their moves, and a couple of them were puzzling. I love the Bones Island. I think that's one of the best value moves. And then Mason Plumlee for Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson kind of the odd man out here for the Clippers. Maybe not. And Mason Plumlee playing above his head this year, definitely for the Hornets. Maybe not the type of player Reggie Jackson is in terms of skill, right? It's just maybe Reggie Jackson's a little better. But Mason Plumlee is exactly what the Clippers needed. They needed another big to spell Zubac a little bit coming off the bench. And Plumlee, very similar style to Zubac. Plumlee's been playing well, and this is almost to the point where you could almost split these guys' minutes 50-50, and that helps the Clippers immensely having another big man like that because the Clippers, a lot of times you will see they just sometimes the game script, they'll just have to play smaller. They won't be able to play big, and I kind of like this here. You add another big man in there. I love the Bones Island. These deals will make a lot more sense, I think, if they do get Westbrook, if he is bought out and they do end up getting Westbrook. But the Eric Gordon one feels kind of weird to me. It's just kind of like, all right, like you have Eric Gordon already and Norman Powell. And then I saw good things from John Wall. I know just still battling injuries, inconsistent. Of course, if they end up getting Westbrook, I'd much rather have Westbrook than Wall. But it just feels like there are a couple swaps here and there where it was like you didn't really need to make these moves. But I will give them credit on Bones Highland. I thought that was a great value. Loved him coming out of college, and I really do think that he's shown a pretty big jump this year in terms of what he's able to do, especially when he was getting extra minutes when Murray was out earlier in the year, and just kind of odd man out in Denver. They just, Denver would rather play Brown, KCP, obviously Murray over him. But I think this will be a nice fit for him. And then Plumlee, which might be one of the more underrated trades. I think just Plumlee's just going to help this team. And a lot of people, because Charlotte's been so bad this year, don't realize how much better, how much more improved Plumlee's been this season.
Yeah, for me, this one's kind of conflicting. I feel like for me, I can't properly rate it until if we see what happens with Russell Westbrook, if they get him or not. Because if they don't, then I don't really see the point in trading John Wall and Reggie Jackson, both of them. Oh, yeah. I know they both don't really give you much offensively right now. And John Wall, he's a little bit older, had the injury. He's only shooting 40% from the field, 30% from three. So he's not giving you a lot. He's also not really playing a lot either. But I think to trade both of them does you a disservice, especially down the stretch when you're playing higher rated point guards in the playoffs. But if they get Russell Westbrook, then fine. I think he'll give you a decent amount of production. He's been really good off the bench this year, surprisingly. And then we saw what he did Tuesday against the Hornets. He was kind of their star player if you want to take out LeBron and the whole record-breaking thing. But he's looked pretty good, even coming off the bench. So he'll give you some production. But other than that, I mean, I do like the Mason Plumlee move. He gives you some size in the front court that they desperately needed. But other than that, this trade really doesn't move me that much. I mean, you do get 3 second-round picks, but other than that, it really doesn't move me. So for me, I'm just going to wait and see what they do to see if and when they get Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. If they don't have a backup point guard plan or a point guard plan, like I don't know what was going on here. I think Gordon.
What other point guards do they have right now?
Terrence Mann.
You're not going to start Eric Gordon at.
Yeah,
is he really a one though?
No, not really. Not really.
Honestly, I would rather play Bones than Terrence Mann at the one.
Oh, I was gonna say
I'd rather play Reggie Jackson personally.
Oh yeah, if you had him.
Right. About Plumlee and Gordon, Mason Plumlee is the right Plumlee who was with the Clippers before, right? I'm not getting the wrong twin there. pretty sure Mason was with the Clippers, and obviously Eric Gordon was with the Clippers before too. Yeah, I think so. So I think that a part of it is got to be familiarity and bringing the band back together. Like we looked at that West standings, Clippers 31-27. They're tied with the Suns and the Mavs right now. If they turn, I mean, the Clippers are the biggest enigma in the NBA, right? Like they could, if they're healthy going into any series, it's going to be tough to imagine them. Like if they're playing to their potential, it's tough to see who can knock them out, just what they can do with their roster and everything. But they've never played up to that potential yet and haven't been healthy together yet. So they're just really interesting.
I think too, what did we say about the Clippers a lot? They had such a loaded roster with so many guys. It's like, how are you going to find minutes for all these guys? So the Clippers did get some extra picks, and they did get a couple other nice depth players. Plumlee and Gordon coming off the bench. Bones, Plumlee, Gordon, probably all coming off the bench. That's nice there. You know, Kennard's a solid player, but he just wasn't getting
He's been tough this year too.
John Wall has just been battling injuries. I like John Wall. I wish they would have kept him. But I understand the move. And then, like,
poor guy has to go back to Houston. He hated Houston. I was so sad when I saw that. Like, John Wall was miserable in Houston. He was no happy to be gone.
I feel so bad for John Wall. And like you said with Reggie Jackson, like that would have been nice to have as a point guard. But if they're able to get Westbrook, that's a perfect spots for the Clippers. And I think that's finally a guy you run the offense through, and you get Kawhi and you get Paul George and those one-on-ones, get them open. Because that was the biggest weird kind of thing with the Clippers. When John Wall was out, and even Reggie Jackson to a point, even when he was healthy, it just was like, who's taking the ball up here, right? Who's running the offense? Who's getting guys open? And Westbrook will take that role because that's the role he's been having his whole career. And that's why he wasn't really working out on the Lakers until he moved to the bench, because he needs to have that type of usage. He needs to have the ball run through him. And I think it's perfect because it's going to be less shooting, more playmaking for Westbrook. But this is all, like I said, hypothetical if Westbrook does end up getting bought out and they do sign him. But it would be kind of a perfect fit. And I think, Amari, all these other trades would make sense. Yeah. But right now, you're right, Amari. They don't have a point guard.
Yeah, they're kind of leaning. It's almost like a math equation. They're kind of trying to bank that they get Russell Westbrook so that this whole thing fits. But for me, it just doesn't right now. And even Luke Kennard, I know he hasn't been having a great season, and this may be my Duke bias showing, but I think he's somebody that you could keep on your team that at some point could prove useful. I mean, he's shooting almost 45% from three right now,
and he's
but only on 20
Gordon.
minutes. So that too. And so, I mean, I feel like, I don't know Eric Gordon's numbers, but he's more of a value shooter. It's like the more he shoots, the more he'll make. But how efficient is he really? So I don't really know how effective he'll be for the Clippers post trade, especially if you don't get Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, it's got to be Russ. They're depending on that. We'll see what the buyout market looks like. But I feel like the Gordon thing as much too is like vibes. Like they're trying to like get this team to gel at the right time and bring these guys that were so important to culture and everything before. So we'll see what happens. Let's move on. Go ahead.
Plus, Gordon's name has been in trade talks for how many years now?
Yeah.
So maybe that aided it too. It was like, okay, well, we'll bring him back. To your point, that familiarity, it was like, all right, we'll bring him back. He's been here before. We know, it didn't end on a bad note. Let's just bring him in. He could score 15 a night for us instead of a team that's going to be in the lottery again.
Yep. On a note of familiarity, that's another great segue by Amari on accident, because James Wiseman experiment is over in Golden State. He was dealt in a 4-team deal. He's going to Detroit. The reunion, GP2 back at Golden State. They literally let him go, let him get his money, and they're like, all right, now you can come back. That will pay you.
I love it, man.
It's awesome. Sadiq Bey going to Atlanta, and a move that I love for Atlanta. And then 5 second-rounders, which are all from Atlanta, and Kevin Knox going to Portland. That part of the deal, again, don't know what the fuck Portland's doing.
Portland made no sense at the time.
Portland made no sense. They never make sense with their trades. Steve, take it any which way. What was your biggest impression from seeing this crazy 4-team deal?
I mean, I think it was really cool to see Gary Payton back with the Warriors. Absolutely going to help him with defense. Absolutely going to help him with depth, with bench minutes. They needed to get rid of Wiseman. It didn't work. I have always believed in Wiseman's potential. Maybe a new spot will help him. And you know what? A young team like the Pistons that have a lot of guys.
Bro, they have like 7 centers. What is going on?
I know it's crowded, but hey, maybe that's gonna make Wiseman, start to care about basketball a little bit. Try to reach the potential why he was a top pick in the NBA draft a few years ago.
A Cade and Wiseman, if Wiseman is like actually could be James Wiseman, a Cade and Wiseman pick and roll is
could
horrifying.
be lethal. But we'll see. That's a big question mark. And I love Saddiq Bey. I think Saddiq Bey just kind of didn't really fit in Detroit. He was in the starting lineup sometimes, and then he was coming off the bench. Then he was going to be like the 6-man role, and then he was just out of the rotation. And it felt like every other week it was just a different role for him. So going to Atlanta, I kind of like it there with Atlanta. We'll see if he's more. I think he's going to be used more as a guy coming off the bench as like that 6-man role, secondary scorer. But that's what Atlanta needed. They really didn't have any of that. So I kind of like Saddiq Bey there. It's a weird kind of trade because then you just kind of throw Portland in there. That's just like, all right, like let's get a guy who hasn't really panned out yet and a bunch of picks. But I like Saddiq. Didn't want GP2. My favorite is Gary Payton on the Warriors. I think it's just that's the type of defense they need coming off the bench, the depth there. And obviously, you talk about someone who's familiar with the team. Gary Payton played there. He won a championship.
Won a title last year. It's literally
it's going to be like he shows up to practice and nothing's changed.
Yeah. Go ahead, Damari. What do you think about this deal?
Yeah, it's kind of a love-hate relationship for me right now, and it both has to do with the fact that I'm a Cavs fan. So I do like this trade for the Warriors, getting Peyton back. He does add depth. He gives you that scoring boost if you need it, especially if Steph's going to be out for a while and, be banged up with injuries. So I do like that for them. I also do like Wiseman for the Pistons. Again, even though I'm a Cavs fan, I'm almost rooting for him to find that potential because you can see it. And when Steve was making this point, it almost reminds me of DeAndre Ayton, somebody who maybe had questions about his potential. You could see it, right? But was he really living up to that potential, especially on a playoff team like Phoenix? Hopefully he can get there. I'm certainly not rooting against him, but I do like that combination that Jake brought up between him and Cade Cunningham, who's obviously out for the season right now. So we're going to have to wait till next year. But I don't know. I feel like that could prove to be a pretty entertaining duo in Detroit right now for a team that's kind of been floundering since, the first LeBron years. Really, they've been kind of bad for a while now. But the Blazers, I don't really know because what are you getting with Kevin Knox? Again, to the point where you're trading away Josh Hart and getting Cam Reddish. What does that really do for you? You get the second.
Why do they want Kevin Knox and Cam Reddish? Why do they want the old bad Knicks?
That does nothing. I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice. You're worse now than you were 24 hours ago with Josh Hart and the second round picks. What is that going to get you? You got
Dame. I like Tybalt.
Yeah, he's good.
Tybalt. But
you're looking at it in the championship window in the aspect of Damian Lillard. You traded away CJ, who I thought was the perfect running mate. I hated that trade when that came through. But you don't want to trade him. Granted, he says he doesn't want to leave, but you're also doing nothing to get him where he needs to go. You're in the West where you have to compete against both LA teams in theory. Golden State, Sacramento's the 3 seed right now. What are they going to do? Dallas is always in it. Phoenix just got KD. So you're doing nothing but making yourself worse because you're always going to be either a first-round exit or in the lottery. That does nothing for you. So for me, the highlight is the Warriors and the Pistons. I like the trade that they did and the pieces that they got. That's going to help them down the stretch. So just kind of wait and see on that one.
Yeah, we'll see, man. It feels like it's got to be something I hope there's something in the plan in the summer.
Unless they parlay it. Unless they parlay him in another deal with these second rounders or something, but I don't really know. This does nothing for you this year, so maybe we'll have to wait and see till the draft to see if they package him for something. But even then, what are you going to get? This is no disrespect to Kevin Knox, but it's Kevin Knox. The guy that you just traded is better, almost combined, than the two guys you just got.
That's what I was just going to say. Josh Hart's the best player out of all the people that we've mentioned, and they should have kept him. He's going to be awesome. He's going to be awesome on the Knicks, and New York is going to love Josh Hart. The Knicks came away with such a winner, and when I saw that trade, I was like, why? What are you trading Josh Hart for right now? That makes literally no sense. And like I said, I like Tybalt, but Tybalt offers literally nothing offensively. And then you brought two inconsistent offensive guys in Knox and Reddish in to supplement what Josh Hart was doing for you. It's weird. They got Jeremy Grant, who's expiring too, this year. They have, I don't know what their deal is. And these are the trades they always make every year though. You're just like, what is Portland kind of actually doing right now? So, I don't Do you want? Let's get into the rest of the major trades for the contenders today. So we touched on the Tybal trade. Tybal going to the Blazers. The Hornets get Zvi Mahalik second round picks and somebody else in there. I can't remember who the third person was in there. I didn't have it marked down. And Jalen McDaniels going to the Sixers, which I think that's a great trade for the Sixers. I mean, Jalen McDaniels, Tybal, they were basically they didn't want to play Tybal anymore. They just couldn't stand it. He literally couldn't do anything offensively. And when you have a guy like PJ Tucker who is averaging 2 points a game or whatever he is, like you really can't afford to have two of those guys. Jalen McDaniels ain't going to bring that defensive juice, but he is going to try to jump out of the gym and dunk on every single person. And I think that's exactly what they needed from a wing, not more of what Tybal. So I like that. A couple of these other trades, and then I'll bring it to you, Amari, to talk just whichever one you want to talk about. The Nuggets getting Thomas Bryant was a solid backup for Jokic there, and obviously the Lakers with bringing in Mo Bamba, that was easy for them. And maybe they were just like, bro, why were you trying to call for the pass when LeBron's breaking a record? Like he legit looked like he thought he was getting a look, but whatever.
Oh yeah, back it up, got the hand.
Yeah, you're not getting the ball. Sorry.
You're literally. It
doesn't matter how much of a mismatch it is. He's not looking at you.
Bron looked at that picture and he went to Rob's office and he's like, "Hey, get what is this guy doing? Get him out of here!" Like,
Bron needed to turn into Kobe at that point. You're asking for the ball right now? No, you're not getting it. Sorry.
Mike Muscala going to the. I got two more. Mike Muscala going to the Boston Celtics, which is. I love that move for Boston. Jakob Poeltl going to the Raptors. He's back there again. And then the Bucks, the prize of free agent or trade deadline day, Jay Crowder going to the Bucks. And that's get 2 second-round picks. The Pacers get George Hill, Serge Ibaka, our boy Jordan Nwora here, and 3 second-round picks. Hilarious that George Hill and Serge Ibaka, the names we talked about last podcast, Steve, when we were talking trade deadline, the two most like big name overrated players, and they both end up on the same team. The Jay Crowder thing I don't really care about though, but other than that, what do you think, Amari? Do you feel differently about that, or where do you feel about these things?
I do actually feel a little bit different about that. Again, I'm a Cavs fan, but I kind of like this move for the Bucks. He kind of reminds me of a lesser Middleton. He obviously doesn't give you that scoring threat, but when he's on from deep, I mean, he's pretty good. I mean, he went to the finals with Miami and then went to the finals with the Suns, and for whatever reason wasn't getting playing time this year. It just didn't work out for him. But he's been in trade talks pretty much the entire year. But, I mean, I don't know. I think in theory, he hasn't played all year, so we're going to see what he's going to do. But this move for the Bucks, I think it helps him down the stretch, especially if, you know, other guys are kind of having off shooting nights. He'll definitely give you the defense no matter what. So him and Middleton on the floor, we'll see, but they're going to lock it down defensively, and then we'll see what he gives you from the outside shot because he's capable of doing that from a consistent basis. So I think of the ones that you mentioned, that's probably my favorite one where I think, okay, well, I could see that being paying off this year. You know what I mean? So the other ones we'll wait and see. I do kind of like the Pacers one getting the 3 second-round picks, Jordan Nwora and George Hill. Serge Ibaka really isn't going to give you anything right now, but at least George Hill will give you some depth. He'll be a backup guard. I feel like they have a lot of guards right now. But
yeah, good vet for that room too, and he's an Indiana guy. Like he's just like hometown
exactly.
kid.
He's been there. He's from there. Yep. But yeah, so the Bucks one is probably my favorite one of the list that you just spewed off.
It's also a cool thing too. Jay Crowder went to Marquette, went to college in Milwaukee. Now he's back in Milwaukee too. That's a nice little thing. What about you, Steve?
Yeah.
I actually was gonna go with the Jay Crowder one because I think it just kind of gives the Bucks that guy who can play defense, who, like Amari said, will hit the open shot sometimes, and just has experience. Right? He's a veteran. He's been in the playoffs many times before. It's a guy the Bucks need because I think that one of the big issues, and I said this just a couple days ago with the Bucks, if they want to make another run, Jake, is they just have so much inexperience right now with Grayson Allen, Javon Carter, guys like that who are playing big minutes, which they're all right. They've got talent, but it's like you need some time to have that veteran leader to have a little bit of grit, and that's exactly
he will offer some spice. That's for sure.
Exactly what he'll bring in this team.
He's gonna give that attitude that team.
He's gonna bring some spice.
He's gonna protect Giannis too when people try to get busy with him.
Yes, he is.
So I think it's a good move. He's not going to be a superstar player, but I think it's going to be a great fit for the Milwaukee Bucks. And then the other one too, which is an interesting one, but Thomas Bryant, when AD was out, was playing pretty well for the Lakers.
Yeah, he was.
A solid player. And now you get Thomas Bryant, who in my mind, kind of similar, not as much, but with Aaron Gordon, where he can shoot a little bit, but he's going to drive more. So he plays kind of more of a traditional center role than the Nuggets have really ever had. But he's also someone, too, if you want to play really big with the Nuggets and kind of go point guard Jokic and have Gordon play the 4, Thomas Bryant play the 5, you can get away with that. And oh, by the way, all 3 guys can shoot. So there's going to be floor spacing, but there's going to be floor spacing with a ton of size. And that's something that a lot of Western Conference teams don't really have if the Nuggets want to play big like that. So I think Thomas Bryant, kind of a unique one. We'll see what his role actually is in Denver, but it's something where I think it could be kind of an odd fit, but an odd fit that works for the Nuggets.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with you guys with everything you said about Jay Crowder, but I'm not a Jay Crowder fan. So that's what it comes down to as much. I've thought for like 5 years he's like rated a little too high on people's things, but I do think they needed to do something like this. Yeah. They, like you said, they needed to solidify just the rotation and everything else. And the Bucks we talked about it last week. The Bucks need to win now. Yeah. Like there's an aging core. Jay Crowder doesn't make them younger, but at least you're doubling down on that veteran aging core that's ready to win right now. I like it. I like it from the perspective of, I think honestly, the Bucks might be the only team I really like it for. Like they're like the team that this is like the exact guy that needed to go to this exact place. I think if another contender would have given up assets for it, and really, I mean, it's just second round picks and Nwora, wasn't getting a lot of run really for them. And Ibaka, they didn't really, those guys weren't vital to them. So it really wasn't a lot that they needed. You got to win right now. I love Muscala to the Celtics, though. Muscala is just going to be better Al Horford. Like Al has lost a step, and that's what Muscala does. He plays great interior defense. People don't think that because he's Mike Muscala and he plays in Oklahoma City, and they just see this big white guy and don't think he can play defense. But if you look at the advanced stats, like he's one of the best, like one of the most effective rotation big like rim defenders in the league right now. And I looked at, there were some stats, go to NBA University. They were showing a ton of stats on how effective he is, interior defensive, and he has a strap. And that's literally all they need from their backup big is a guy who can protect the rim a little bit and who can shoot in those lineups, maybe with Robert Williams too. Muscala is just the rich getting richer, and they didn't have to give up anything for it. I think they would have had to give up more for Pirtle, and I honestly kind of like this more than Pirtle. I like the fit better. So, but the Celtics and the Bucks, I think it's head and shoulders above the rest of the East right now with their additions, and just with the Sixers and Cavs as the other 2 teams. I don't think those 2 teams are on the level of the Celtics and Bucks. I don't think that's a surprise. I've been saying that about the Celtics and Bucks all year too, but it feels more evident today after the other teams didn't. I mean, I like I said, I like Philly. I don't think they're the Celtics or the Bucks though. No. They might be in a tier on their own. It might be like Celtics, Bucks. What the fuck do you do with James Harden, Cavs? Everything else, because that's all that matters. Like if James Harden balls out, they could win the title. He's never done it before though, so I won't believe it till I see it. Any other notes or anything off the trade deadline? That's the major trades. There were some other like smaller trades with teams that like not contending. Everything else, but anything else that come to you guys will go to Steve, then you, Amari, and then I'll wrap it up here.
The only thing I got really is there were just some teams I was surprised kind of stayed still. Like I was talking before, the Chicago Bulls. I'm really surprised the Chicago Bulls didn't do anything. It just seems it's like one of those teams. Toronto Raptors, another team where they had assets. They had guys. Everybody would have wanted OG Anunoby. Maybe they couldn't get a deal done. They said they were fielding offers. Obviously, you have Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam's future kind of uncertain with Toronto. You could have maybe gotten a big return for that, but they didn't really do anything, which was surprising because those are those teams, like I said, that are kind of stuck in the middle. And then another team too. I know the Pacers kind of took like that salary off and they got a bunch of second round picks in the Bucks deal, but I'm surprised the Pacers kind of stayed still with both Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. I thought those were guys that a lot of teams would probably have interest in that would help contending teams. And I think the Pacers are still a year or 2 away. I know they've been playing above their head this year, but just a few of those teams in the middle, I was a little surprised, just kind of stayed put. And like I said, there was always going to be that one deal that we were shocked that happened, and it was Kevin Durant when I woke up this morning. So I did get what I wanted. I wanted the one shocking deal and didn't expect it to be at 6 a.m, but here we are. But I was really kind of shocked that there were a lot of those teams in the middle tier that just kind of stayed still, and I think it's going to hurt them at the end of this year and going forward.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised the Raptors kind of stayed put for knowing how much that they wanted to trade and kind of get younger and everything
They're
like
such a
that.
tease.
To just do nothing, and the fact that they have the assets that people will want, and you probably pay a pretty good penny for it, and they do nothing. The other team that I'm surprised didn't do anything are the Cavs, to be honest. Just because, as Cavs fans, we know that the one piece that they need, especially as you just said, those tiers in the East, it's kind of Boston and other team I'm forgetting about, but whatever, the Sixers, and then the Cavs. I mean, you're not helping yourself in that case in the playoffs by not going out and getting a consistent a wing score because Okoro and
hold up, Amari. Will this change your mind? This is from The Athletic yesterday. What? I sent this to Steve. He knows exactly what I'm about to read you.
Oh boy, here we go.
Isaac Okoro. Yeah. And the month of January, 47.6% from three.
I want to say he's hitting almost 50% of his threes from the start of the.
And he's shooting 52% from the field since January.
But here's the thing. I know for a fact, as much as I love seeing it, I know for a fact that's not going to get team in the playoffs. He's going to give you the defense between him and LeVert. But LeVert is so inconsistent. He'll give you 40 one night, and the next one gives you 5 points on like 2 of 20 shooting. Like, what are you doing? And then Okoro, his only reliant shot is an outside shot. Once people know that he can now hit that shot, they're going to lock that down and deny him the ball once the playoffs come. Is that your only strength? His strength is actually slashing. That's his real key. And
he's a good finisher,
He had to develop that outside shot. And now that he's shown that he can hit it, we don't know if he's going to do it consistently. So I personally would have liked to see them go out and get a wing that's a little bit more consistent than those two. The other trade that I wanted to touch on is Devontae Graham going to the Spurs for Josh Richardson to the Pelicans. I don't know how consistent Josh Richardson will be, but at least I think it'll give New Orleans an additional offensive threat.
Agreed.
Alongside CJ McCollum while Zion is out because we've seen them flounder while Zion's been out with that injury. They don't really have many guys to go to offensively. Brandon Graham. Oh, Jesus, what's his name? Brandon Ingram. Thank you. Has been out with injury as well. And he's a guy that could get you 25. A little Duke bias showing there. But with those injuries and with probably your best player on the team being injured for a lot of time now, I think through the first 16 games, it went 3-13, I think. That may be wrong, but I don't have the numbers in front of me. But he'll at least give you a different offensive threat alongside CJ McCollum so that he doesn't have to do it all if and when Ingram is out. But at least if you have Ingram, you could go to those three while Zion is out. So that's one that I think kind of fell a little bit under the radar.
Definitely. I really did. That's a great point, Amari, because I liked that move by the Pelicans. They just like a team that's going to be in the playoffs in those battles. You want a guy like Richardson off your bench that you can come to in depth situations, and just he's a great defender too, and he's gonna give you effort and everything else on that side of the ball. So yeah, I love that move too. I'm the Cavs. I wanted them to make a deal too, but if there wasn't anything that, like, if OG wasn't on the table and they weren't gonna pay for, I mean, Mikal Bridges, that's a whole different story. But like, if OG really wasn't on the table, I don't think Sadiq Bey was ever gonna be an option, because why would the Pistons trade with I never expect division teams to trade to each other. And really, like, out of that, the rest of the wings, I wouldn't have minded Malik Beasley, but he doesn't really help defensively. Cam Johnson would have been awesome if he wasn't part of that big deal, if he was just going out.
For sure.
And Kobe said, like, in his thing, like, there wasn't any whatever move that would have been thing. LeVert's gonna annoy us all year though. Like, he's gonna piss us off.
And he said that Kevin Love, there's no discussion between buying him out. So if you're gonna take him out of the rotation, that's another bench score that you're not having in the playoffs either.
Yep.
So I feel like those two things,
they're gonna be.
You needed to go out and get somebody.
They're going to be in that buyout market, though. They have to. I saw that. Thank you. You literally took the words out of my mouth. That is my dream, is Terrence Ross on the Cavs. The Bulls make no sense, bro. The Bulls, I don't know. I can't wait to listen tomorrow morning to my I can't remember what the guys are, their names are, but sometimes I just need to, like, catch up on Chicago, and they're going to be losing it, because this has been the talk the whole time. Like, blow it up, make something happen, do something. And they did zero. They literally didn't do anything. I don't know what the fuck that team thinks they're going to do.
Would it have helped, though, really?
I think they should just blow it up.
Trading Levine away, so who would you really acquire on top of that and Lonzo Ball being inconsistent and injured, what
just
move
rebuild.
would you have done?
I think
I want to blow.
I
think
agree.
that's the direction
I agree.
the Bills should have
So
gone.
I think they should have been sellers, if anything, and not buyers.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep, definitely. Vucevic is gonna be gone for nothing now. Like, I don't know if they could have found a deal, but they could. I would have taken 5 second-round picks for Vooch. Like, at least it's something. Like, there's gonna be nothing.
And not for nothing, DeMar's 33. Like, DeMar's getting up there in age too. It just, I was shocked the Bulls did. That's the one team I was shocked did nothing. Because at least for Toronto, you're like, all right, the guys are somewhat younger. They could still probably get something for him at the end of the year.
Well, they can sign and trade. They can sign and trade both Van Vliet and OG in the offseason.
Agreed.
So, like, whatever's there. And Toronto, maybe with adding Pirtle, Toronto might have be like, we could contend in the East, like, with our roster. They seriously might be thinking that. I don't think that. But if you look at, like, the way that they think that about themselves and the team they put on the floor and how, like, think of how hard they were to play against last couple of years with the Celtics and all these other series and everything. It's not out of the realm. And I credit him for wanting to keep those guys together and keeping that flexibility. So I like the Pirtle move a little bit.
And not only that, I mean, Scotty Barnes is probably the best month of his career has been this past month. He's been balling out, and Pascal I think he's averaging like 25, 7, and 6. So
yeah.
I mean, we'll see, but I don't know. Toronto it's just a weird. It's a weird spot.
If Masai is convinced that they're better than the Cavs, I see why they did that, and he might be, and he might have, and you could convince yourself of that. I think if you wanted to be a Raptors fan and think that, go ahead, but you don't got Donovan Mitchell, so good luck with that.
There you go.
The Knicks, I really love the Knicks getting Josh Hart. I said it earlier too, though, but I think he is
great move.
Perfect. I mean, that starting lineup now that's a pretty damn good lineup. If you put him, Brunson, RJ, Randall, Mitchell Robinson, I really like that starting lineup, and that's the nicest thing I'll say about the Knicks.
And it's Brunson, your point guard that you got this year, that's been playing his best year of his career, getting his college teammate back. You saw the reaction video where he was elated that they got Josh Hart. So I think that's a great fit. And sometimes too, maybe that helps Josh Hart a little bit. Now playing with the guy you played in college, your point guard, who knows? Yeah.
That's awesome. I saw Josh Hart's tweet too, and he added him and Mikal Bridges, all the former Villanova boys, at dinner soon. So good for that. Get the boys back together in New York City. Like, that sounds like a good time. Yeah, but I think I think it's good for Josh Hart. Love it for the Knicks. I think they're gonna love him, New York, and everything else. Any other final thoughts before we go here? I think we're all set here on the trade deadline.
The Bulls need to tear it down. The Bulls need to tear it down and build around Alex Caruso. If you also want to talk about the starting lineup in New York, I know this is NBA, but can we talk about the WNBA? Because the New York Liberty right now, their lineup is looking scary. I'm calling for an Aces Liberty finals in the summer.
Oh,
but shit, bro, the Aces. Hold on, no. Screw your cheating ass team, Steve. No, they should break them up. Bring Candace back to Chicago. Them cheating. No, I know he loves the Aces though.
So do I.
Yeah, they're cheaters. What you talking about? Mark Davis.
Come on.
He paid her with some Vegas casino chips or something under the table.
I don't care.
You know what? Good. Good for them, because WNBA players aren't paid enough.
Paid.
Good.
They should be getting paid.
Good for them. First off, secondly,
I love Mark Davis
these two super team juggernaut teams are going to help immensely grow the game of the WNBA.
Dude, what are I'm so excited to see what the ratings are for the first Aces.
I know.
Liberty. It better be like ESPN, like Friday night. Like, they better give it the whole thing, because I think they could get like million viewers, like more than like hockey, baseball, national games, and that would be
that's
huge.
what you need. That's what you need to grow the game. You need star power, and you need these type of big, exciting teams to watch. You look at the Aces, and I know, Amari, you know this as well as I do. They got 5 top 20 players in the WNBA in their starting lineup. You got Kelsey Plum, who was the first all team, and was the second leading scorer in the league last year. Obviously, she's my favorite. You got Chelsea Gray, who was just a monster.
Amazing.
Playoffs last year, unbelievable. I mean, she was cold-blooded in the fourth quarter, the final 2 minutes of every game.
She was shooting the lights out. She couldn't miss it in the playoffs.
She could not miss. You have Jackie Young, who was the most improved player in the WNBA last year. Asia Wilson, who was the MVP and the Finals MVP.
Won another MVP.
And then you had Candace Parker, who has pretty much every award and every
All the
championship
accolades,
you need. And you add that into that team right there, you've got potentially, if you want to go with Kelsey Plum, Asia Wilson, and Candace Parker, 3 potential top 5 players in the WNBA on the same team.
Yeah.
And Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray's the other 2 are very, very good, with Chelsea Gray probably being top 10 and Jackie Young probably right around in the teens. I mean, this team is insane.
The biggest thing between the 2 of them, because that big 3, like it's going to be hard even for the Liberty to match with Stewie and Vandersloot. But if Sabrina takes another step and she's like she could be the best player in the league this year, no one would be surprised.
I'm scared of the Liberty's front court. They've got the size and the scoring.
Yeah, they do.
The Liberty's front court. I mean, in the past couple of years, their starting lineup has all either been an all-star or an MVP. I mean, that almost parallels with the Aces and the recognition that they have. And the Aces, most of their players the past couple of years have all been like number 1 picks. Like, that's how good they are. And that's how, I don't want to say lucky, but that's how good they've been in the draft. And then to get these talent that they're worth the number 1 pick, and they're all in their team playing really well all together at the same time.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy because if you remember the playoff series last year, Seattle versus the Aces, Stewie single-handedly almost took out the Aces with the way she was playing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Sue Bird was great too, but it was really Stewie that was basically carrying the Storm to almost beat the Aces. And now you get Stewie, who's
she has help
with Jonquel Jones and Sabrina Ionescu. Jonquel Jones won the MVP 2 years ago. You got probably.
Don't forget that Courtney Vandersloot is one of the best shooters in all of the WNBA.
For sure.
Like the spacing they're going to have.
And she,
inside.
Another one who wants to play with a player. I think that always helps. Vandersloot wanted to play with Stewie. They wanted to play together. I didn't think it'd be possible they'd team up together in New York, but you do. And like you said, Jake, Sabrina could be the best player in a year or 2. So I am too, Amari. I'm just hoping we get an Aces.
I'm hoping Sabrina.
Everybody should be.
I'm hoping Sabrina kind of makes that jump like Kelsey did. Obviously, she was hurt. She got hurt her first year, but we saw what Kelsey did. She was kind of flounder in the first couple of years, and we saw that jump that she took last year. I'm hoping that Sabrina almost matches that because we know she's a double threat almost every night with her production and the playmaker that she is. So I'm hoping that she really comes into her own as she gets more mature and develops as a player alongside. I mean, probably the best big probably right now in Stewie alongside Jonquel Jones. I mean, that is just scary.
Terrifying,
yeah, definitely. Well, it's gonna be a fun year between those 2 at the top, and just see where else everybody else falls behind, because everybody else is gonna be gunning for them.
They need to carry the load just because everybody else around them right now is kind of floundering. I mean, I don't know what Phoenix is gonna do. Diana's getting older. Stewie and Sue Bird just left the Storm. I mean, I don't know what else you're gonna do. I don't
Chicago's
think
done. I was just gonna say Chicago's taking for Paige. Everybody's taking for Paige at this point too. That's gonna be a problem.
Connecticut.
I don't think Connecticut is gonna do much. They just lost Jonquel, even though they were in the playoffs 2 years ago. I don't really see what anybody else is gonna do outside of those 2 teams.
It's gonna be a lot of tank. If Paige Bucher's whenever she comes back, she looks like she's supposed to be. It's just going to be taken for her. I think
Caitlin Clark too,
and Caitlin Clark too.
Don't forget about Caitlin Clark. Yeah. She's unbelievable.
I don't. Is Caitlin Clark going to leave though? Because I thought wasn't she going to come out last year and then didn't?
I don't know, but she's putting up buckets like Kelsey did in college.
In the draft class.
Okay, all right. I would hope so, but yeah, there's definitely it's an interesting year because like you said, those 2 teams are so stacked, but it's gonna be a big draft class coming in too. We'll see what happens with some of these teams.
Probably the best draft class in a while for the I mean, this is a loaded draft class.
So it's gonna be fun. All right, guys, let's get out of here. Thank you, Amari, for joining as always. Thank you, Steve. Follow us wherever you get your podcast. Follow us at Happy Hour Hoops 1 and follow us at Trainwreck Sports. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you next week. No more craziness. We're not gonna miss nothing. We'll see how it looks over the weekend.
All over.
And next week we have All-Star, so it'll be a fun week. We'll think of something fun for All-Star. So have a great night, folks.